What is up, guys? Divisioning #1 here, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today with a very special guest to discuss one thing, and one thing only. Who would win? And the guest today is my good friend. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Dominic Anderson.
I think we can hear you. You do not need to shout. Anywho, Dominic, do you know who we are discussing about today?
Well, today we are going to be talking about Greninja versus Espio.
Ooh, Pokemon versus Sonic. A very interesting little battle. So I brought Mr. Dominic Anderson today here to help me out with Greninja, cause I don't know anything about the new Pokemon games. So I thought I'd bring in someone who has played them and knows quite a fair bit about it. I today will be talking about Espio the Chameleon. And at the very end, we will both talk to each other and try to come to a conclusion of one thing and one thing only: the name of the show. Who would win in a fight between these two guys? So, Mr. Dominic Anderson, could you tell us a little something about Greninja?
Well, as we all know, Greninja is a water-type Pokemon. He's basically water-dark type Pokemon, I should say, and he's basically a frog Pokemon and a ninja. And well, as for there's not really much of an origin, I guess we would be saying, because Greninja first starts off as a Froakie when you first get him, and then it evolves into Frogadier, and then of course it evolves into Greninja, as we are discussing today.
So that's it for the that's it for how that's blah blah blah, cannot speak. So that's basically it for getting to know the basics of Greninja.
That is correct.
Okay,
so do you know basics of Espio?
Basics? Well, what you basically need to know about Espio the Chameleon is simply this. He was born to the chief of a clan of ninjas. Espio was born a purple chameleon and was raised and trained to be a first-class ninja. But instead of becoming a first-class, he instead became something greater than that. He became an elite-class ninja, and then he went to travel the world to show his to make his skills better, and to show his skills and to save people. And then he met three very strange people: Vector the crocodile, Charmy the bee, and Knuckles the echidna. And then one day he met a curious blue hedgehog known as Sonic. And after saving the world along with Sonic, he became a member of the Freedom Fighters. And that's almost all you need to know on Espio.
Is there an explanation as to how he was trained, to be like that kind of a ninja as he is today?
Well, as I said, he was trained by not only his father but every other ninja trainer there is. Because his family is a clan of, because he lives in a clan of ninjas, he basically, learned what everyone else has learned, ninjutsu. So he pretty much picked it up from every other member who wasn't, he picked it up from everyone who was already a ninja, and learned from those who have mastered it, I suppose. In other words, he just picked up what he saw every other ninja do. Hell, you know what's funny about the whole clan? Not all of them are chameleons. Some of them are different animals. There was even an echidna who was a ninja. Can you imagine that?
Wow, I didn't think of that.
I mean that was a thing. In the comic strip, when Espio returned to his clan, there was a ninja who was an echidna, a freaking echidna ninja. That's just bonkers.
So basically, there was an echidna ninja, and that he's basically in a clan of ninjas. How did they allow him to be a ninja? You know, the echidna, when it's basically supposed to be, you know, ninjas. Did they I don't know, find him in the woods or something and decide to train him or something?
No. Okay, think of Espio's clan of ninjas as a group of ninjas who train other people who want to be a ninja in the ways of ninjutsu. So kind of think of the...
Oh, okay, wow.
So think of the clan as like one big master. In other words, it's kind of like how the monks train you... It's kind of like how the monks in China train you to do kung fu. But explain me this. Are we using a wild Greninja or a Pokemon trainer Greninja?
Well, we're gonna be doing a wild Greninja.
Okie dokie then. Right. Well, Dominic, as you've been on this show before, I'm sure you remember what we have to do now. We have to go into the stats department of this show. And the stats we have today, Miss Dominic, are as such. We have strength, speed, martial arts, technique/movesets, powers and abilities, and transformations. So, could you tell me how strong or what the strength is of Greninja?
Well, there's sadly nothing much about Greninja's strength. I mean, the only thing that's considered strength is when Greninja uses the strength move, he can break rocks.
Very interesting. Are they solid rocks or are they fragile?
Well, they're pretty solid, actually.
Well, who said a frog couldn't break a rock?
I honestly didn't think that would even be possible until I played Pokemon X and Y.
But then again, with anime and video games, nothing's impossible.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, yeah, just like how in the anime of Pokemon, where Pikachu he can destroy ground types, and as we all know, electric types aren't really good on ground types.
That is very true. Rock and Earth type Pokemons are unaffected to electric type moves. But they're not very keen on water types. No siree are they keen. But anywho.
Anyways, what can you tell me about Espio's strength?
Well, there's not many feats of strength that Espio has really done in either video game or comics, but in one issue of a comic, Espio was at an old base that was owned by Eggman, and out of the blue, a clone of the Death Egg robot came out of nowhere to attack Espio. And in just a couple of minutes, Espio managed to defeat it. And at one point, it tried to stomp on Espio, and Espio managed to hold up the leg for about maybe a minute, because I because it took like one frame. Like, it showed it stomping him, then he spoke to say, if you think you could defeat me like that, you're sadly mistaken. Then the next frame he tossed him off. So I guess it took only about a minute. Either he tossed him off because he couldn't hold it, or he tossed him off because he was strong enough to do that. So I suppose that's a feat of strength in a way.
Huh, that's actually rather interesting.
And it's funny, that robot wasn't controlled by Eggman, it was controlled by a robot Eggman.
So in strength as well, like, did Espio do, like, I don't know, I don't know, did he, like lift other things, or?
Well, as I said, there's not many depictions of Espio's strength. That was almost the only thing I could find. The only other thing where I don't know if it's strength or not, but one time, out of the blue, he was strangling Knuckles in the neck. He was literally trying to strangle him. I was like, what the fuck? But I'm surprised he even managed to hold him for that long. He was strangling Knuckles for about 4 frames, and if I think this is right, almost each frame in a comic book is about a minute or so, depending on what comic you're reading. But if that calculation is true, then Espio was strangling Knuckles for 4 whole minutes. And then Knuckles punched him off, and Espio got the biggest black eye I've ever seen. And I think he lost a couple of teeth.
Wow, poor Espio.
And the lesson we learned today, kids, do not piss off Knuckles. He will hurt you like there's no tomorrow.
That is correct. I mean, he has done that to Sonic and Sonic X.
Yep. No, Mr. Anderson. Okay, which sounds like a reference to the Matrix. What? How fast is Greninja?
Well, when Greninja uses Quick Attack, he goes to at least around 100 miles per hour, both in the games and in anime. And in Smash 4, Greninja runs really fast. I'm not really sure how fast he is per se on Smash 4, but however, he can get to his opponent by running by at least 2 to 3 seconds. Also in Smash 4, one of his victory animations, Greninja puts his hands together and, well, and that's really about it for Greninja speed.
So him running to his opponent in about 2 or 3 seconds, is that on the other side of the stage, or is that literally anywhere?
Well, I'm kind of doing it in a straight line. But, you know, if I were to make Greninja run, you know, to his opponent in training mode in a straight line to get to his opponent, it takes around 2 to 3 seconds to get to his opponent.
But what if the opponent was on the other side of the arena? How long would it take him then?
Well, I'm not really so sure. I mean, if we were to say, there's a hole, where he has to jump, probably takes at least 4 to 5 seconds, possibly.
Okay, but say he was, on the Final Destination stage of Smash Brothers Brawl, which I'm guessing is in Smash Brothers 4, because why not? It's the Final Destination stage. Anywho, say he was on that, and they were both on either ends of the stage. How long does it take him to run from there to his opponent?
Well, like I said, 2 to 3 seconds. Because like I said, going in a straight line, so it would take him 2 to 3 seconds to, from that end to the opponent. Like I said, 2 to 3 seconds.
So hold up. I just realized some calculations in my brain. When Solid Snake lies down, he takes up about a third of the stage, and Solid Snake stands about 5'11". So if we times 5'11" by 3, that's over 17 feet. He's running from one end to the other, which is probably round about 17 feet long, in 2 to 3 seconds. Holy shit! And I thought it was supposed to be your job to do that. I just calculated for you, and and what I just figured out was fucking insane. 17 feet, or nearly 3 meters in 2 to 3 seconds. Flippin' heck.
And so, what do you know about Espio's speed?
Well, as you know, almost every character in the Sonic universe are really fast. Well, I say almost every, but there are some who are slow, like Big the Cat, for example. But almost everyone else is really fast.
Oh no, we don't talk about Big the Cat.
Even Froggy's faster than that fat idiot.
Yeah, I know, right? No wonder why Froggy runs away from Big.
but besides that, Espio is fast, but for some reason he's not as fast as Shadow, and as we all know, Sonic's way faster than him. So Espio is in base form is just under light speed, but thanks to his transformation, he goes well over light speed. But because there's no even though he had a foot race once with Shadow and against every other member of the Freedom Fighters, and he came third to Sonic, Shadow, then it was Espio. Surprisingly, he beat Tails. The guy who was with Sonic almost his whole life, Espio managed to beat him in speed.
Well, that's what happened in Sonic Rivals as well. Sonic Rivals 2, because he can beat Tails in a race as well.
And if Espio is like the third fastest of the entire Freedom Fighter group, then that's why I can only think he's just below light speed. But we don't know but I can't really say how much under light speed he is. Even if he was like, I don't know, 10% lower than light speed, that is still about 4. That's like 7/8 of the. That's like 7 times fast. Not 7. Okay, because okay, I can calculate from how fast lightning goes. Lightning is the third of the speed of light, and if Espio is just under the speed of light, then Espio is round about two times faster than lightning. So I guess I can say how fast he really is. Espio is probably 2.5 times faster than lightning.
Which is still pretty quick.
Yep. If you're faster than lightning and you're an animal, you have to be fucking fast. Looks like I went from barely knowing how fast he is to kind of calculating how fast he could be. Right then. Moving on to the next category, shall we? Now, could you tell me what martial arts Greninja uses?
Well, in Smash 4, Greninja will jump in the air and kick downwards, and he can do this as many times as he likes. And I know that for a fact because, like several times when I was in Smash for Glory, I faced a Greninja who spammed that move like constantly. But he can, and also Greninja's Final Smash has Greninja grabbing the opponent and he throws him up in the air. Then he repeatedly kicks them, and then kicks them in a downward motion. Then the opponent goes flying upwards because of the attack power. In Smash 4, his side throws are kicks, along with upward throw because he kicks his opponents upward from an upward throw as well.
So would you say because he kicks a lot, he prefers something similar to kickboxing or taekwondo?
Yep.
Because there are only a few martial arts that favor kicks more than anything else: kickboxing, taekwondo, or kung fu. And as I don't know many Pokemon who know kung fu, I'm guessing that more than likely Greninja maybe knows taekwondo, as that's also a martial art that ninjas learn. Okay then. Well, so...
So what do you know about Espio's martial arts?
Well, Espio is a ninja, so naturally he would learn ninjutsu, which no matter what other people say, is technically an official martial art. And Espio has trained under this style for so long, he has mastered it. In fact, he even became better than his father. The guy who fucking trained him in ninjutsu, Espio managed to beat him and became a better master of ninjutsu than his own father.
So can you explain like how he did that? Like how he beat his own father?
Well, when he left the clan as an elite ninja, in terms of ninjutsu, his father was still better, but after so many years of training and practicing ninjutsu, and because he trained with literally almost every other member of the Freedom Fighters. He trained along with Sonic, Shadow, Knuckles, Tails, Silver, Blaze, Amy, Rouge, hell, everyone. He even had a few sparring matches with Vector. And because when he returned to the village, it wasn't one, not two. No. It was 10 years later when he left. He was around maybe 12 years old when he left, and he returned 22 years old, and he challenged his father to a match of ninjutsu to see how good he has become in it, and he beat his father.
Wow.
So instead of being, and then his father actually offered Espio to become the clan leader, but then he was like, nah, that's your job. I prefer being a freedom fighter. So instead, he was announced an honorary master of ninjutsu. In fact, in the Sonic universe, there's no one who's a better ninja than Espio. Literally no one. Even the Chaos God of ninjutsu himself can't beat Espio in ninjutsu. The Chaos God, a god of ninjutsu, can't beat Espio, who's a mere mortal. How ridiculous is that?
Now that is really impressive.
I don't know about you, but if I was to fight Espio, I would find as many dash pads as I can to run the hell away.
Yep, I do the same thing.
But anywho, now that we got that out of the way, could you please tell me what techniques Greninja has, or movesets, as the other term would be, I suppose, for a Pokemon?
Well, I won't talk about a whole lot about his moves, but I will still talk about some of his moves. For instance, when Greninja is at level 42, he will learn Substitute. That move will have Greninja creating a green statue. If the enemy attacks the green statue will take damage and not Greninja. Greninja can also swap so he can attack and then turn back into the statue. Once it takes enough damage, the statue will disappear and cannot be used for the rest of the battle. When Greninja is at level 68, he will learn Hydro Pump. This is the strongest water type move. Once the enemy takes damage, Greninja won't be able to attack until the next turn is used in that Pokemon. When Greninja is at level 77, he will learn Night Slash. With that move, he slashes the enemy. It's not that different from Slash, except it's the dark type move, and that it's, more powerful. In Smash 4, Greninja's Speed Special has Greninja firing a water shooting star at his opponent. The longer Greninja charges it, the larger the water shooting star becomes.
I don't know why, but Greninja slightly reminded me of Lucario for some reason.
Well, in a way, he's kind of like Greninja. Lucario, but he has a totally different move set from Lucario.
But think about it. You said before, one of Greninja's fighting abilities is to jump above his opponent and kick downwards as many times as he wants. That's also something Lucario can do in Brawl, if I remember.
Yeah, that's basically what Lucario does.
Guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree in Smash Brothers.
What can you tell me? Anyways, what can you tell me about Espio's techniques?
You want to know Espio's techniques now, do you? Well, let me tell you something. One of Espio's techniques is turning invisible on his opponents and attacking from literally anywhere he wants. But more than likely, he'll always attack from behind. Because, as every martial artist knows, your behind is your most vulnerable spot.
And, has there ever been a time when Greninja? Has there been ever a time when Espio has ever gotten caught in his invisible form?
Well, more than likely no, because not even high-tech scanners that detect infrared and have night vision, none of those cameras made by Eggman or Tails can even detect Espio. The only person who was able to just barely see Espio when he was invisible was Shadow, and there was a reason behind this. Not because of Shadow's power, no, because of his eyesight. Because Shadow's an android, he has far greater Anyway, his eyes are better than any modern day camera, scanner, or anything in the world. Shadow has heat vision, night vision, sonar, radar, zoom. Hell, even if he loses his ears, he can hear with his eyes. I'm not joking. In the comic book, when Tails was looking at the schematics for Shadow, it literally said Shadow's eyes have a microphone, so he can literally hear you if he doesn't have his ears. That just sounds crazy.
Well, that's actually kind of interesting, but in Sonic X, even though I understand why, but in Sonic X, when Amy was painting the wall, the paint got onto Espio in his invisible form, and because of that, the paint went on himself, causing him to be seen.
That has been explained many times. if you literally put paint on anyone who's invisible, they become, well, visible. But because Sonic X is more based around comedy than it is action, that's not the true Espio. The Espio I'm using is from the video games and the comic books. And the only other person to just be able to... But the only other person to be able to see Espio was one time when Sonic and Espio decided to have a game of literally called tag. Espio went invisible, Sonic couldn't see him, then he came from behind Sonic, literally 5 times in a row, and then the 6th time, so I turned around and managed to catch Espio this time, but only because of one thing. Sonic said it got predictable. But then again, Espio was young back then, so he didn't have really any ideas. And Sonic's not too dumb when he sees the same thing over and over. But anyway, that's not all the techniques Espio has. Oh no, he has quite a few techniques. He throws kunais and shurikens, which are the most common tools of a ninja in real life and in video games, comic books, and anime. He also can make tornadoes thanks to his wind ability. He can also make a wind ball, which is a concentrated ball of pure wind. He can also make an energy shuriken, or shooting star for you non-Japanese readers. He can also make a wind shuriken. He can do the homing attack like Sonic can. He can do the spin dash slash attack, the vertical spin dash slash attack, and thanks to his super form, he can also do the light speed attack, which was originally done by Sonic the Hedgehog. It almost seems like almost everyone copies that blue guy. And also in his super form, he has a special move called the Hurricane Spin attack, where he's not just spinning vertically doing a spin attack, he is covered in a hurricane. A freaking hurricane. I don't know about you, but I would think twice before going near that. Whew. Well, that's all the techniques Espio has. Got any more questions?
I don't got any questions for that.
I had one question about Greninja's techniques, though. You know how he can do that statue thing that looks like him to trick the opponent? Is that like a distraction or something like that? Is that like a distraction ability?
Well, it kind of is, yeah, but in Smash 4, it's his counterattack.
Huh. Well, that's clever. Okay then, now then, Dominic, we are moving on to power. So could you tell me a little bit about Greninja's power, or what kind of power he uses?
Well, Greninja doesn't really have a power per se, but he does have Power Up Punch, in which in that move, Greninja will punch his opponent, and then it raises the Pokemon's attack.
Raises his attack or the other Pokemon's attack?
It raises Greninja's attack.
Okay. Okay, because he hasn't got much power, what abilities does he have then?
Well, Greninja has multiple abilities. One of the moves is Torrent. That move powers up water-type moves when a Pokemon is in trouble. He can also use Rain Dance. This move powers up water-type moves, but lowers fire-type moves.
Very interesting.
So what can you tell me about Espio's power and ability?
Okay, as we all know, as all our Sonic fans know, that Now almost every Sonic character uses the power of chaos, so naturally Espio can use this as well. But he can also manipulate the wind, so he can literally control an element. He also has the ability to become invisible, because he's a chameleon. Kind of obvious. He also naturally has super strength and super speed. And well, that's about it.
Huh. So, okay. I don't really have any questions for that, but that's interesting.
Shall we move on to the final one?
Yep.
Okay, so the final one, as if you remember, are transformations. So what transformations does Greninja have?
Well, with the Battle Bond ability, it can transform into a special form known as Greninja. Greninja, with the ability Battle Bond, cannot breed, and sadly, Greninja doesn't get any new moves in this form. But, however, despite that, it raises Greninja's stats.
So he transforms, he doesn't get any new moves, but all of his old moves get a bit stronger.
Well, that and his, defense and all that.
Okay, well, very interesting. But correct me if I'm wrong, as with every other Pokemon I know, I remember some guy showed the stats of Mewtwo's evolution, and even though a good amount of his stuff was raised, some of his stuff was lowered. Like, one of Mewtwo's X evolution made him slower, while his Y evolution made him faster.
Well, that's true, but none of his moves get decreased.
But what about Greninja's ability? Any of his abilities? Like, does he get slower? Does he get weaker? Does he have less defense or anything?
Nope. He just gets stronger. He doesn't get any. Decreases whatsoever.
Huh. Talk about a lucky frog.
I know, right? Like, I didn't think that'd be possible either.
I know, because usually whenever you get a new power, something changes about you, which you'll have to deal with.
Well, the only other thing I could say that would decrease is that Greninja has to forget a move to learn the new move. Other than that, there's no other decreases.
Huh. Well, how about that then? Well.
So what can you tell me about Espio's transformation?
Well, I'm glad you asked. As it so happens, as almost every member of the Freedom Fighters can do, they've learned and obtained an ability thanks to the 7 Chaos Emeralds, known as a super form. Everyone's super form is unique in their own way, but they all do the same thing. Whenever they transform, every move they had before, literally everything they have, their speed, their strength, their power, their abilities, all get times by a ridiculous number. Do you want to know how much it gets times by?
I'm not sure.
It gets times by 1,000. Not 10, not 100, 1,000.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it is literally ridiculous. Now,
Pretty overpowered.
Well, yes, but there is one problem. Espio's not familiar of how to use the Chaos Control ability. Unlike Sonic and Shadow and Silver, Espio doesn't know how to stop time. So yep, there's a problem there.
It's kind of funny considering that Silver learned how to use Chaos Control just by watching Greninja. Shadow do it, but then again, Sonic learned how to use Chaos Control by watching Shadow do it.
Jesus. Jesus. What is Shadow? A trainer in the ways of Chaos Control?
Probably.
Lol. Well then. That's that for all the stats, I suppose. But I just have one very important question for you, Mr. Anderson.
What's that then?
Are you ready to discuss who would win?
Yeah, let's see who would win.
Okay, now we need to start from the top. First off, the strength. We need to compare how strong each character is. So
and just like I said from before, Greninja, all he can really, like on strength is, he uses strength and then breaks rocks, which allows him to progress. And I guess we could say that as well, that when he, I don't know, like he can, like in Smash 4, he can literally pick up heavy opponents too.
But does he get stronger when he Mega Evolves?
Yeah, when he Mega Evolves, his stats get increased, like I said before.
But how much, may I ask?
Well, probably each stat gets raised by maybe 50 or so by each stat.
Do you mean 50 points or get times by 50?
Well, 50 points. Like for example, strength, let's say, 100, and then plus 50 as an example.
So if we were to have a level 100 Greninja, which has everything at maximum level, and he was to Mega Evolve, he would only be strong enough to break, what, 2 rocks?
Well, anyways, as for his max stats, his HP is 348, his attack power is 217, his defense is 256, his special attack is 335, his special defense is 265, and speed is 377. And so in total, that'd be 530 of points.
Okay, but how much would you say he gets increased when he Mega Evolves?
Well, so for example, when he Mega Evolves, 348 plus 50, that'd be at least 297 or so.
Beg your pardon? I think you might want to do your math again.
I said at least.
Okay, then I guess. So
because 358 times 50. Wait, what am I doing? 348 plus 50.
that would be over 400. Yeah, actually, that would be just below 500.
I was gonna say, because we do 348 plus 50, and according, that's 398. So that's 2 points below 400 for HP at least.
So it doesn't. So the Mega Evolution doesn't increase the stats that much. Is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, because like I said, like it raises at least 50, per stat. So like I said, yeah, that's not a whole lot of. I know it's kind of stupid, but the way it is.
Okay, so at the most, would you reckon Greninja in his Mega Evolution could break maybe 2 rocks?
At max, yeah.
Okay then. And as we know, when Espio defeated that Death Egg robot clone, he did it in base form. And as we know, metal is way more denser and stronger than rocks. As we know, metal types are stronger than rock type Pokemon, so the same applies literally everywhere else. So in base form, Espio's not only stronger than Greninja in base form, he's stronger than him in his Mega Evolution. And even if I was to go ahead and calculate how strong he would be in his super form, Espio would be well overpowered in terms of strength. Because the Death Egg robot has been calculated to weigh exactly 100 tons. And as Espio was holding up one of the legs, crushing him, and apparently according to someone, one leg is about a third of a person's body or something like that. So Espio would be lifting at least maybe 30 to 35 tons in one of those legs. And he not only held the leg, he pushed the leg so hard that he pushed over a 100-ton robot. And 100 tons times 1,000, because of the super multiplier, would be somewhere over 1 million. So that is ridiculous amount of strength.
So yeah, obviously, Espio would win on strength.
So the first point goes to Espio. Now let's go to speed, where this will get a little bit interesting. Because ninja speed is pretty debatable depending on the ninja. So how fast again is Greninja?
Well, like I said, quick attack, when he uses that, he's at least 100 miles an hour. But when Greninja, in terms of running, like in a straight line, he'll get to his opponent by 2 to 3 seconds.
So how fast do you reckon he gets when he mega evolves?
Maybe he'll run to like maybe 200 miles an hour at max.
Okay, so we got a base form 100 miles per hour, and in evolution form we have 200 miles per hour. And if my calculations are correct, they are well below the speed of sound, because the speed of sound is 765 miles per hour. And Espio is just slower than the speed of light in the base form. And as I calculate, he's maybe 2.5 times faster than lightning, and lightning is well over the speed of sound. So sorry to say again, no offense, Dominic, it looks like Espio's faster than Greninja.
Which is fine, because it doesn't really, so.
So once again, a point goes to Espio for being the fastest. But now,
let's be honest, I don't really care yeah, I mean, I don't really care who wins at this point because, like I said, I like the Sonic series more than the Pokemon series. So, lol.
Lol. A person who's meant to be helping Greninja win is rooting for the other guy. You heard it today, folks.
Well, how about?
But now,
Well, anyways, I guess the next thing on the list is martial arts.
okay then. Now then, we need to discuss how great Greninja's martial arts are compared to Espio's. And
well, as like I stated earlier, is that Greninja, he can jump in the air and kick at his opponent, as many times as he likes. And his final smash, he'll grab his opponent and he throws him in the air, then he repeatedly kicks them really hard at a downward motion. Then the opponent goes flying upwards really high because of the attack power. And in Smash 4, his side throws are kicks. In his upward throw, he'll kick his opponent as well.
And also thanks to me being able to know what martial arts do what, the martial art he probably uses is preferable to that of Taekwondo.
Which is correct.
So when he does that final kick in his final smash, he's not only kicking them hard enough for them to bounce off the ground, he's also getting a little extra hand thanks to gravity, making the impact even greater. And as we all know, when humans fall from a great height to a flat surface, they stay on the surface. But you're saying Greninja can kick someone so hard that they don't hit and stay on the surface, they hit the surface and bounce right off as if the surface was a giant trampoline.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, that's basically correct.
So either he turns his opponent into a bouncy ball, or when he kicks the opponent, he turns the stage into a frickin' trampoline. He literally defied. So Greninja can literally defy the laws of physics with his final smash. Who knew Pokemon could break the laws of physics?
Well, then again, it's like saying that, Pikachu from the anime can, hit electric type moves on ground types and rock types. He can do that in the anime, but he can't do that in the games.
Very true. But okay, so we got a frog Pokemon that possibly has Taekwondo and can defy the laws of physics with his final smash. And on the other hand, with Espio, he is a master of ninjutsu. And the art of ninjutsu came from Japan. And most martial arts in Japan are as such: karate, judo, kenpo, ninjutsu, and a couple of others which and sambo. But ninjas more than likely learned the art of karate and judo, and they learned to jump across buildings and such from acrobatics. So we basically got a master of ninjutsu versus a guy who has possible Taekwondo fighting style, who can break the laws of physics. But then again, Espio has done some physics breaking things himself.
So it's basically more of a tie.
So yep, in martial arts, it's either a tie or just undecidable. So no one gets a point, I guess?
I guess no one does.
Or would you say they both get a point?
I say none of them get a point because, it's just not really fair. I mean, it's not really fair, if, like they both can, they're really good at martial arts, and it's undecidable. So I think no one gets a point on that one.
Okay then, so the third stat is undecidable. No one gets a point. But now techniques. So we need to.
As like I said from before.
Now with techniques, there are many variables. There's more techniques. There's better techniques, and then there's the third and probably most important one: ability to use techniques the best. Like say for example, one of your best techniques was to punch your opponent through a rock. If you're able to do that, if you're able to use that to your advantage in every situation, then well, that can give you an advantage in the battle. So do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I know, but
so we have more techniques, better techniques, and better usage of techniques. So for one stat, we had to figure out 3 things. Now the first thing, more. Who has the most techniques?
Well, as like I said from before, one of Greninja's is like he can use substitute, and where he can turn to a statue, and then if the opponent attacks the statue will take damage. Not Greninja. The Greninja can swap himself so he can attack back, but then turn back into the statue. But unless it's in Smash Brothers, because in Smash Brothers it's used as a counter attack, and then when it takes enough damage, it disappears. He can also use Hydro Pump, which once the enemy takes damage, the Greninja can't attack till the next turn is used. Not so sure how that'd be in Smash Brothers, because Smash Brothers doesn't have that move. He can also use Night Slash, which slashes the enemy, and that is not that much different than Slash, except that it's slightly more powerful, and that is a Dark type move. And that Greninja, he can use a Shooting Star that's based on water. The longer he charges it, the larger it becomes. He has a lot of techniques per se, but I can't really say a whole lot because it'd be way too long for this video.
I don't know about you, but I'm beginning to think Espio has the most techniques, even in base form. He can turn invisible, throw kunais and shurikens. He can make a tornado, a wind ball, an energy shuriken, a wind shuriken. He can do the homing attack, the spin dash slash attack, the vertical spin dash slash attack, and in his super form he can do the light speed attack and the hurricane spin attack.
Well, like I said, if it was me, if it was my way, I would put in like every single technique he could use. But there's probably over 50 moves that Greninja can learn. And that'd be way too long for this video.
Flippin' heck. Okay, so in shortened down, Greninja has the least amount of techniques, but possible maximum amount Greninja has the most. So, but because we're making them fight at their absolute best, what does that mean? That means somehow either you're gonna have to you're either gonna have to tell us the techniques he could learn, and then add them in, or I have no flipping clue actually. This is actually gonna be a bit hard. So does Greninja have the most techniques, or does Espio have the most?
Well, I would say that Greninja has the most, considering, he has like over 50 or so moves.
Well, looks like for once, Greninja has won something. Greninja has more techniques than Espio. But now the question, who has better techniques?
that's true. I mean, that's why I said, I mean, I'm not really too sure on it. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess, like, another example would be Double Team, in which that raises his evasionness, which means that he can, you know, evade attacks better.
Huh. Okay then, so...
And when he can also,
okay, I think I know the best way to say who has the better techniques. Base it off one specific technique. What's the most common yet most powerfulest move Greninja uses?
Well, I'm not sure, but maybe Hydro Pump, because again, that uses the most power out of all the moves that Greninja has.
Okay then, so you're saying the most powerful move Greninja can use is Hydro Pump. Okay then. Well then, all of Espio's techniques are pretty powerful, but if I was to say which one is the most powerful one, I would say maybe his tornado ability. Because not only can he surround himself in a tornado, he can literally make the tornado and throw it in any direction he wants.
And so, Espio won that part where he has better techniques.
Really? Straight away? We're not even gonna discuss how it would win? You're straight up just gonna say Espio's tornado could beat a water gun?
Well, I mean, the only other way is if Greninja. Well, it depends on how big the tornado is. Because if the tornado is like small, Greninja can easily jump over it and attack back. But if it's like a big tornado, like, you know, the tornadoes that we have in real life, then that's undodgeable unless Greninja somehow manages to go over it somehow and attacks back.
Well, the most powerful tornado Espio has ever made was one time in the comics, was when he was on the planet Jupiter. Yeah, I'm not joking. The Sonic the Hedgehog comics used actual real-life planets on their adventures. One time they were on Jupiter fighting a gigantic army of Eggman robots, and because Espio was getting really annoyed, he spinned so fast that he created a tornado that went outside of the planet's atmosphere. He literally defied the law. He not only defied gravity with the tornado, he defied the ozone layer of the planet and freaking physics. I mean, can you even make a tornado in space? I don't know about you, but I don't think that's possible.
So, yeah. And so that's why I said that, you know, there is no way Greninja would be able to dodge that tornado. It's impossible.
So, from all that, we agree that Espio has the better techniques?
Which I agree on, because like I said, I don't see how in the heck Greninja would be able to dodge that unless, like I said, he can't use the substitute. I mean, like if he were to use this, I mean, okay, I mean, the only other way he would win on that part is if Greninja uses the substitute move while he's using that move, because, you know, it would hurt the substitute and not Greninja. That's the only other way.
Very true. And because Greninja can run 100 miles per hour, even though the suction of a hurricane is great, if you're running at an incredible speed in a straight line, you can actually outrun a tornado. In fact, it's not actually even impossible. Even a tornado, a Type 3 tornado, which have suction powers of over 300 miles per hour, if you're driving just over if you're driving over 60 miles per hour, you can actually outdrive the suction of a tornado. No joke. It's been proven. A modern car can depending on its speed, can actually outdrive the suction of a tornado.
So yeah, how about that?
Even if Espio was to throw it forward towards Greninja, I suppose Greninja could, I don't know, run a different direction, because that's the funny thing. When Espio throws in one direction, that's it. It goes in the same direction. He can't make it go anywhere else. Which is kind of dumb in some ways, but it's almost never failed him before. But how I know it could happen is because, well, Espio tried to throw a tornado once at Sonic, and while Sonic was running in the same direction the tornado was, all it took was Sonic a sharp turn to the right, and Sonic easily escaped the tornado with minimal ease. And if Sonic can do that, I almost have no doubt that Greninja could. Even if it was at the most powerful tornado, I just don't see how Greninja couldn't dodge it unless the suction was just too great for him.
Oh wow.
Okay then, but so even though it is dodgeable, the greatest technique goes to Espio. But now we need to know one thing: who uses their techniques better? Now this one's gonna be a bit debatable. Well, as I know from Espio, he uses his invisibility technique to he literally milks the ability to be invisible. An opponent coming towards you, you don't want to be seen. Boof, invisible. Gotta go on a mission and not be seen. Poof, invisible. Don't want to be seen by your crazy ex-girlfriend. Poof, invisible. Want to get behind an enemy? Poof, invisible. Surprise, bitch.
And as we all know, Greninja can't do that. He just can't.
Yep, because as we all know, frogs can't turn invisible, but chameleons can, because of the pigments in their skin, which allows them to change colors to their surroundings. But Espio takes that to a whole nother level. While chameleons can be sort of seen on plants, like let's say a plant is green, you can still slightly see a chameleon. But with Espio, he doesn't just become the same color as the wall he's standing in front. He literally changes color instantaneously.
So it's impossible for him to get caught.
Well, yes, but it's only happened twice. One time thanks to Shell's enhanced eyesight, and second time by Sonic being able to anticipate Espio's attacks. But ever since then, Espio's learned to not always attack from behind. He's actually learned a special cool technique. One time against an Eggman soldier, and by that I mean an egg pawn, he went invisible, and then he went on a tree and threw a kunai from like the right side of the robot, and it went right through the head. That is one sharp tool and one sharp mind. Anyway, I'm basically saying if Espio realizes his invisibility attacks are getting a bit predictable, he'll change up his tactics. So they're almost literally they're damn near unpredictable. Not even Shadow, who's arguably the smartest not even Tails, who's arguably the smartest character in the Sonic universe, not even Tails with an IQ of 300 could predict Espio.
Yeah, same what happened to Greninja. Not to mention that Espio, he could turn invisible throughout the entire match, so Greninja can't even see where he is at.
So, do we agree that better usage goes to Espio?
Yep.
So, overall, in 2-to-1, while Greninja has more techniques, Espio has better and can use his techniques better. So in 2-to-1, well, it's all like the old saying, it's quality, not quantity. But now the last one, and once we do this, sadly we'll have to end the video because it's been literally over an hour and 20 minutes, near enough. So So now transformations. We need to discuss who has the better transformation.
Well, and like I said before, ability he can known as Greninja, in which Greninja with that ability he cannot breed, and Greninja doesn't get any new moves, but all of his stats get increased.
Okay. Well, if I remember, each stat gets increased by 50 points. With Espio's, if he had stats himself, his transformation allows him to increase everything by 1,000. So that means Espio could defeat 1,000 Death Egg robots, making him ridiculously powerful.
And that's why I said that, once again, Espio would get the point in this because, yeah, again, there's no way Greninja would be able to, win on that.
So overall, while they may match in martial arts and Greninja has more techniques, Espio is stronger, faster, has better techniques, has better transformations, and has better power and abilities. So overall,
which I'm happy with. So yeah, Espio wins, and to be honest, I'm actually really glad about that, considering that I love Sonic more than I do with Pokemon.
Well, there we go, guys. The winner today is Espio the Chameleon. Oh, well, this is gonna be the longest video I've ever made. Actually, I must say this has to be the longest video I possibly have ever made. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Who Would Win. Make sure you keep watching my channel and wait for the next episode of Who Would Win. Make sure you leave a like, you leave a comment, you subscribe to join the Hedgehog Army /Nation today. Also, please like, subscribe, and comment to Dominic Anderson's channel. I will leave a link to him in the description below. You can also find this video on his channel as well. Thank you for joining me today, Mr. Dominic Anderson.
Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome too.
Would you care to say goodbye to the audience?
And bye-bye. And before we go, Vector has one thing to say.
And what's that?
I'm in the computer room.
Get out of here, Vector.
Okay, I'll be serious. Bye, everyone.
Alright, thank you, Dominic. And stay awesome, guys. And as always, a Dragon Fest. Hiya.